Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. With the voice, Milt Thompson. Delivering the best of sports programming. Interviews with top celebrities. And the answer to the question, where are they now? And now, Milt Thompson, Playing for Keeps.
Good evening and welcome to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. And it's been such a pleasure delivering these sports programming shows to you. And I want to, again, thank you for your viewership, for your friendship, for your kinship, and your penmanship as you, either through text or writing or emailing, have let us know how much you enjoy this special kind of sports programming. I want to personally thank you, as well as our sponsors, Jiffy Lube and Bleaky Dillon Crandall and East Spot Spas and Tubi coming along, Hope Training Academy, and you others there who are going to say, this is a really good way to get value from our services and products. We're going to advertise right there on Playing for Keeps with the voice, Milt Thompson, every Friday evening at 9 o'clock here on WHMB Channel 40. Well, we've been exploring the world of sports around here with Where Are They Now section once a month, and we're going to continue to do that. Going to have another special person for that for this month coming. Before we get to that, though, we're going to dig deeper into the world of people and sports. There's a tremendous intersection between the hard knocks, if you will, of athletes. Sometimes they get knocked around, as witnessed by the Indianapolis Colts here recently. They were on hard knocks and they got really a hard knock. But we're always there because after a crushing loss, there is a crushing feelings that people have, and they have mental health issues and they have difficulty. And many times they need something that they can't get delivered by a coach. They need something that can be delivered by other people that understand them, have been in their shoes, and can work with them through those particular issues. We're going to do that today with the Reverend one, Reverend Kenny Johnson, who has been a chaplain for the Indianapolis Colts for as long as I've known him.
30 years.
And we're going to do that right after these short words. We'll be right back here on Playing for Keeps.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
And welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. And I promise you, we're going to get into the people business today. And sometimes that has to be into the God business today. If you remember Pastor Ray Tolbert talking about his sojourn through the world of sports and how it really festered with him when someone told him, do you really have a personal relationship? Those kind of things are meaningful when you're kind of coming off of a road of tough knocks. Well, we're going to deep down into the nitty-gritty, as we used to call it, with the Reverend one, Reverend Kenny
You know how reverend I am. I'm a pastor, but a humble brother from the hood, bro.
Well, you got a hood that takes you back from Texas all the way back,
Dallas.
and then your road to Indianapolis and your athletic background, family, and had some tragedies there, and we've been involved for a long, long time.
God.
We go back and
Almost 30 years.
About 30
when
years.
When I first got here.
Talked together, prayed together, worked together, looked after flocks together.
Amen.
Well, tell us about your journey to Indianapolis, and then once you got to Indianapolis, your ministry.
First, I want to thank you, bro. We go way back, and I'm honored when I got the request just to do anything to assist you. You have been a patriarch in our city. You have been a bridge builder. You have just set an example of excellence, and I'm honored just to be called your friend. My mom was a prostitute. My dad was a heroin addict, born in 1960. We traveled and moved to Dallas, and when I was in Dallas, we moved like 18 times. By the grace of God, I received a scholarship to Tulsa University through hard work. At Tulsa is when I really went deep with the Lord, graduated with honors, became a police officer afterwards, and got married. Been married now for 39 years. My greatest accomplishment, hand down. In that journey, when I left the police department, I came here to work for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. That's how I got affiliated with the Colts. And for 30 seasons, we worked with those knucklehead, entitled, broken, but yet gladiators of today's society. And I learned a lot. I was able to leverage that all over the country, all over the world, speaking at Promise Keepers and leveraging books and music and singing, and it opened up some tremendous doors for me. So I was honored and privileged to serve in that capacity as I transition out as a lead pastor of a church plant, cross-cultural, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-generational, mission-shaped, outreach-focused church. All those experiences I learned as a chaplain, all those people, all those churches, all those doors that it opened up for me has now given me a tremendous platform.
Well, you obviously were at a crossroads with your parenting or lack of parenting skills that you had, but you've been able to transfer through that crossroads.
Well, see, that God in the Word became my father, and I've had mentors and people that have come alongside and really modeled out for me. Guys like you who just set examples. We're without excuse because God always leaves a remnant for individuals. I was just talking to one of your producers before you came out about my transition of why I kind of left that world, because that world really sets those people up kind of to fail because they set them up as stars. They set them up as these heroes of society, and when they're no longer useful, they kind of throw them away. And if they have not been prepared about how they save their money, if they have not been prepared of how they look at the succession plan of what's next, because if you think that's it, then you're in really big trouble because it's such a high to be there. When we went to the Super Bowl, man, there's nothing like being escorted in, down on the field. Everybody's clapping and yelling for you. And when that applause goes, what's gonna feel that? What can be deeper than the applause and the acceptance of man? I believe the love of an awesome, mighty God that can go deep into your heart, into your soul, and can fill you when absolutely nothing else can. I was preaching this Sunday on this aspect of how we look for love in all the wrong places, through money, through sex, through the addiction to fill us with joy and privilege. But the only thing that can ever really satisfy you is the love of an awesome, mighty God.
Well, there had to be a breakout, though, Kenny, right? There had to be, I mean, we don't get just attached to God by standing there and either not seeking or being sought. What broke you out of that to get you a scholarship and to get you to Tulsa and to get you to perform? And there had to be some catalyst.
Hungry. I was hungry. Hungry. You know, I send a prayer out every day, and it says, you know, live to love, stay hungry, humble, and hopeful. And hunger drives. You know, one of the things that I look at when athletes become successful, when they come into the league, they're hungry, bro. They want something. They got a dream. They buy their mama a house. They want to break the cycle of poverty that they've come from. And that hunger. And one of the worst things you can do to somebody is fill them. Is give them things that they think has accomplished. And they've earned it. I think they earned it.
Sure,
because these brothers, you know, they work hard. It takes a lot
Certainly does.
to get there. It's, you know, when you look at over, 5,000 individuals by the time they come out of college will be eligible to be drafted, and they only take, 200 and something of them guys out of 269,000 when they graduate from high school. So it's a horrific and really a hard road to get there. And when they get there, it's like, I made it. But the average career, you know it because you've been there. 2.5, 3. If you the Bradys and the Brett Favres and the Peyton Mannings
those are
and
such small
really small percentage. And to this point of breaking out, it's that hunger and it's hard work. And the same thing that it took for individuals to get there, if they keep applying those same principles to their life, they can do the same thing about becoming an attorney, about the next. You know, as I transitioned from the coast after 30 years, I had my next succession plan in place. Now at 61, I'm planning at 65 my next succession plan, what I'm going to be doing next. I'm writing my next book. I'm in the process of planning my next tour, planning on all these experiences I've learned of how to blend cultures. You know firsthand because you've worked with some of the pastors in the community about how hard it is to work together, to break down all these divisional things that separate us.
Well, adulation can be a very enticing drug.
Oh, dude.
When people are essentially worshiping man, worshiping you, worshiping that. I remember asking here in our studio, Gary Brackett, what was the moment in his career? And it wasn't a crunching tackle. It was running out through the tunnel onto the field and having everybody out there in the stadium, you know, have the spotlight on you. that was so overwhelmingly touching to him that he said it took him, it seemed like in his mind, 5 minutes to run through that tunnel.
Right.
Well, we can look at these as false gods. We can look at these things as idols that are out there. And you say they've earned it. Just think about those with great talent. Think about those with great talent who don't make it.
Right.
A
whole lot more
with great talent. So it's not always about talent.
Right.
It's about how you work that talent and how you take advantage of opportunities. I can go through so many examples just like you can, but when you came here and we had a chance to meet and talk and discuss professional athletes, and just when you think about high school athletes in the state of Indiana, through the IHSA, they represent over 160,000 student athletes.
Yes.
How many of those even sniff a college at any level?
Right.
Very, very small percentage. So by the time we get through that funnel and it gets up to the top, we're talking about very, very few. You went through some tragedy, and you've had some adverse circumstances in your life. If you don't mind sharing a little bit of that with us and how it is you break through those tragedies to be able to create and develop your talents.
Well, in high school, I broke my neck. I was paralyzed from the neck down, and they said I would never, necessarily play again, but walk again. And through the grace of God, no doubt, I was healed, was able to recover strong, got a scholarship, got drafted, went to Seattle, got hurt, got cut. And through that pain, I've learned to embrace the pain for my neck. So that's when I grinded and got involved with the militaries and the reserves and became a police officer through that connection. And through being a police officer, went and got licensed and ordained through the church there in Tulsa, and began to start working with inner city children, I went intentionally to the hood, back where I grew up, with the mindset of I'm going to help because I understand the hurt. And the very hurt that I came from is what drove me to go back and relate to a lot of those people's hurt. And from that, not only did I use that same mentality working as a chaplain with the Colts, now I use that same mentality now working as a pastor in a multicultural church, up and outers and down and outers. It's amazing how the cross-section of where I come from has prepared me to do what I'm doing now.
Well, we're going to get a chance to marshal and march through that. But there's such adverse reaction to someone says, "Oh, I'm a police officer,"
right?
And particularly, I'm a black
police officer.
Yeah, bro. And out there, and, I was a black prosecutor back in the day. They said, "Why are you prosecuting a man?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, don't you understand that my clients are also black mamas whose sons just got killed?"
Yeah.
So it goes around really understanding about how it is we can break this cycle. Unfortunately, even 40 years ago when I was doing that, here we are 40 years later, and we're still killing each other.
Right.
What can we do as theoretical role models or people who care? How do we help break this, Kenny?
Wow, it's re-education. My mom shot me when I was a senior in high school because she was addicted to drugs. And I received a scholarship, and I remember as we were leaving the city, after I had gotten healed and left the hospital, I had vowed never to go back and see her again. I was so full of pain and so full of hurt, and that because my biological mom shot me. It was a horrific situation. I had a car, and she let somebody use it. I came home, cussed her out, she shot me. Well, for 2 years when I was gone in Tulsa University, I remember getting ready to get married, and my wife, who was then my fiance, said, "You need to reconcile." And forgiveness. She helped me to forgive my mom. And it was hard, I'm not gonna lie, because when I saw her, I remembered the pain. I can still see the scar. And I think that's the beginning of how we get through a lot of the brokenness and the destruction that separates us. As a police officer, we respond to tragedies and hurting people all the time. And I had to learn to forgive. One of the reasons I left, because I got tired of being reactionary.
Well, we're going to react to the whole concept of forgiveness.
Right.
As we kind of march through your chaplaincy and what a chaplaincy is, what a chaplaincy means, how that is you have kind of turned your life into service, a life of service, utilizing your talents and what have you.
Yes.
Brother can sing, y'all, just so
I sing
y'all
a little
know.
bit, just a little bit. I like to do it, bro.
He has that talent.
But
we're going to march on with the Reverend one, the Reverend Kenny Johnson, right after we have these short words. We'll be right back here.
Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube. Playing for Keeps, presented by Jiffy Lube.
Welcome back to Playing for Keeps. I am your host, the voice, Milt Thompson. Every Friday night, right here on WHMB Channel 40, you're going to get the best of sports programming that goes in depth, gets behind the scenes, talks to those people who not only make it up and down the basketball court or the football field or the baseball diamond, but we're going to talk about those that really get behind the game, behind the scenes. And no one does it better than our special guest here today, the Reverend one.
There you go again.
The Reverend Kenny Johnson.
I'm going to tell my wife that when I get home,
well,
call me the Reverend one.
Well, she'll watch it on TV and then she'll say,
"What?" She's going to say, "Yeah, right."
Back, Milt Thompson, you guys go back, don't you?
You're the garbage man. Take that trash out, boy.
Oh, mercy, Kenny. It is your exuberant personality as the Reverend one that causes others to gravitate to you.
Hey,
they've always gravitated to you, and so you can see when someone is confused or tired or hurt, and you reach out a hand. Oftentimes, it takes someone else to grab that hand to do that. Tell us about chaplaincy, and particularly your ministry with the Indianapolis Colts, and you don't have to cite specific examples if you don't want, but tell us about that journey of helping these professional athletes, sometimes who are worthy of entitlement, if you will, in terms of their professional sport, but maybe no more worthy than you and I of the grace of God. Tell us how it is you deal with what is chaplaincy in the first place, and what was your role with the Indianapolis Colts for over 30 years?
Well, chaplaincy simply is just a modified version of an on-site pastor that has a specific group of individuals other than a congregation. And when I think about the constituents that I was with, fame, fortune, power, and pleasure is what comes to mind. Fame, fortune, power, and pleasure. Those are the things that kill kings. And so when you get an individual and you give him an extraordinary amount of money, you give him a tremendous amount of fame and accolades, you give him pleasure. And boy, I'm gonna tell you, it creates a recipe for disaster. It really does, because they start believing, because they smell the perfume, they have a right to drink it. I know that's a crazy metaphor to think about, but when you drink from that world, it is dangerous. I've seen brothers I've had to deliver from strip clubs, guys who we've got calls in the middle of the night jumping up and beating up their girlfriends. I've got guys that continually in an adulterous relationships. You get these guys that have these crazy freak parties, man, that you look on this Hard Knocks, well, not Hard Knocks, but the Pro, there's the game. And that metaphor, bro, that's real. That's not like fabricated, that is real. And so you go into that environment saying, we want you to be men of integrity, men of character, men who give back more to this world than you take from it, that you use your resources to give and create foundations, and you use that platform to help heal and restore brokenness. You are a role model for society, and children and people emulate you. They say 91% of society is influenced through athletics. And so now you are a, quote, a god in people's eyes. You should not take that platform lightly. And so you come in as a chaplain, as a pastor, saying you need to give homage to the one who created you, the one who gave you the very platform in itself.
Our good friend Justice Moyen called the sports the opiate of Americas.
Bro.
That we get so intoxicated by athletics. Yet other times they say it is the most galvanizing piece of society as well.
It definitely.
If we have differences, people can say, well, what about those Colts this weekend? Or what about those Pacers this weekend? So people from different walks of life can get together. I'm going to add one more ingredient to your iniquity den, and that is time.
Ooh.
When these young fellas have money, access, fame, and then some time, idle workshop.
Right.
And how do you help them fill up the time with more constructive things as their chaplain and mentor?
Pursue, and just try to be there as a voice of reason. I never knew my biological father, and I know a lot of these guys that I really would gravitate to would relate to that same, we would have that same experience of missing a father figure. And so part of the nurturing aspect, I became a father, spiritual father to a lot of these guys that I'm still connected to. Guys like Torrey Glenn, Gary Brackett was my favorite player because of his story of where he came from. He was like that little engine that didn't get the message that he wasn't supposed to be doing what he's doing and what he had done. And so they need someone not only to be a cheerleader for them on the field, but off the field. How are you going to love? Like, what are you doing with your life? And does it matter? Do you have a succession plan? Have you thought about what's next? Because you do know it's coming.
So there's a long off season.
Yeah, and to this process of time, you ain't not going to be here that long. And so just look at what are you going to do. So how are you maximizing the moment that you're in? And so we are that voice of reason, I think. In one respect, you say this aspect that they worship. One of my pastor friends came in and I took him to a game. He said, man, this is transferable worship. I said, what do you mean? He said, they worship these guys. I mean, they pay homage. I remember going to some of these games and some of these old women who would not look at you outside of that arena. Man, they come hug you. When we won the Super Bowl, I'm in that arena. Man, I had people hugging me and kissing me that 2 years prior was trying to ban me from the team. And I'm like, what's so galvanizing in one capacity? But also my presence represents reprehensiveness. It represents conviction, condemnation to choices and lifestyle. And so it's a constant tug of, if you're going to stand for holiness and righteousness and being above reproach, people who are not living that way want to put your light out. When you shine the light in the midst of darkness, they say roaches will run away from it. And that's what the presence of God does a lot of time. Not to be overly spiritual, but this process of, I try to represent hope and love and making right choices and better choices with who you are and what you do with your time.
So from the church universal, where it is a church in a facility at a place, or maybe even in a bricks and mortar of a church, there becomes representation of the church universal, which is where you are now.
Right.
Tell us briefly about where you are now and where you hope to go.
Well, you know, when I got close to my 28th year, I began my succession plan to leave at 30. So we wanted to plan a multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-faceted church. It's at 465 East 86th Street, New Heights Church. COVID hurt us a little bit. Racism always hurts because I'm intentionally trying to bring cultures together. But it also has been healing. And so I'm preparing it to give it to the next generation at 61. You know, I am not trying to be pastoring a church at 65. I want to use my voice kind of like what you're doing, to be an agent of change and of hope. So when I was a chaplain, I traveled the world, traveled the nation, evangelizing with my books. I do still sing. I'm going to still be singing. I want to galvanize different churches that have traditionally not come together. And I have some of my succession plan. One of my buddies, one of my bishops is Gary McIntosh. He's a church in Tulsa that has like about 13,000 members. He successfully transitioned it to the younger generation. One of my other buddies, one of my big brothers, Pastor Walter Harvey, has a ministry called With Us, and basically how we come together. And so I'm putting together a piece called the Victory Formation, of how you literally formulate people to come together from different sections to gain victory. And we're using sports metaphors to do it.
Sports, business, culture, spirituality, hope, in the Victory Formation.
The Victory Formation.
We've got him right here
Come
with
on,
us.
boy. We doing
the
it.
Reverend
It's coming out, man.
Kenny Johnson.
I'm excited about it, bro.
Thank you for joining us this evening,
man.
folks. And I know you're going to go tell everybody that you saw Kenny Johnson on Playing for Keeps, and you're going to come back and you'll watch us
It's just because of this brother right
next
here.
week
This
on
brother
Playing
is the real
for
deal.
Keeps.
Believe me. Trust me in this.